Imagine waking up to headlines suggesting that Britain, the world's fifth largest economy, could one day be forced to seek financial help from the International Monetary Fund. Shocking, unthinkable, or perhaps a warning sign that should not be ignored. The Chancellor Rachel Reeves insists Britain is nowhere near such a scenario. She dismisses the idea outright, claiming no serious economist has raised it. But why is this conversation even happening? And what lessons can we learn from history? Let's rewind to the 1970s. Back then, Britain was drowning in economic turmoil. Inflation was spiraling, investors were pulling away, and the pound was in freefall. Labour's Chancellor, Dennis Healey, had no choice but to fly to Washington, cap in hand, asking the IMF for the largest bailout in British history, nearly $4 billion. In return, Britain accepted painful tax rises and the deepest spending cuts ever imposed. The consequences? Political humiliation and 18 long years in opposition for the Labour Party. Fast forward to today. Is Britain facing a repeat of that nightmare? Government borrowing costs are now at their highest since 1998. Markets are jittery. 30-year gilt yields are climbing. Does this sound like a healthy economy, or one running dangerously close to the edge? Here's the key question. Is Britain simply too big to rescue? The IMF has around $1 trillion in lending power, but Britain's share of that pie is worth only $30 billion. According to the rules, we could borrow roughly 3 times our quota, about 67 billion pounds. Sounds like a fortune, doesn't it? But put it into perspective. That sum would barely keep the NHS running for 4 months or pay pensions for half a year. Would such a loan even touch the sides of Britain's financial gap? Think about this. The government is already on track to borrow nearly 120 billion pounds this year alone, just to balance the books. And refinancing past debt pushes that figure to more than double. With pressures like that, is denial from the Treasury enough to calm the markets? Or do we need a completely new economic strategy? Let's pause and ask you directly. If you were in charge, would you choose higher taxes, painful spending cuts, or riskier borrowing to fix Britain's finances? Share your thoughts in the comments at England. Now 7, we always read and respond to your views, but there's more. Even if Britain never goes begging to the IMF, the specter of the fund still matters. Why? Because governments often use the IMF as a convenient scapegoat. When unpopular reforms must be pushed through, cuts to welfare, reductions in winter fuel payments, it's easier to blame an external bad cop than to own those decisions yourself. Could this be the strategy Reeves is quietly considering? History gives us plenty of cautionary tales. Greece in the 2010s borrowed nearly 300 billion euros across 3 bailouts. Each round came with brutal austerity, bitter negotiations, and ultimately a debt default. If that's what happened to a smaller economy, what would it look like if Britain, 15 times larger, ever went down that path? Could the IMF even cope? Or would the entire global safety net be stretched beyond breaking point? Job vacancies
Analysts
have
are
continued to fall. Some argue that the IMF would be reluctant to lend to
in
a
the
wealthy
3 months to
July, the
country,
lowest since
preferring
April
instead
2021.
to offer
There are now
advice on fiscal
2.3
discipline.
unemployed job
But is
seekers
advice
for
enough
every
when
available
inflation is
position
still high?
Double
Growth
the
is
ratio
sluggish,
seen during the
and
hiring
markets
boom
are
of
circling like
2022.
sharks.
According to
Others
ONS
point out
data,
that having the
hospitality
IMF involved,
vacancies
even
have
informally,
plunged by nearly
might
a
actually
quarter
help
since
politicians
Labour took office,
push through
while
reforms
retail
they secretly
vacancies
support,
are down by more
but dare
than a
not
fifth.
admit.
Do you think
Despite
the
this
Labour
clever
force survey
politics,
reporting a
or
record
dangerous
employment
denial,
high of 34.2
Reeves is
million
already
economists
reviewing
doubt
IMF
the accuracy of the
recommendations on
data due to
tweaking
low
tax and
response
spending
rates
rules.
after the pandemic.
But here lies another dilemma.
The survey also
How far
shows
can
total
Britain
weekly
stretch
hours
its model
worked
of
in the
American-style
economy
low
at a
taxation
record 1.1
while still promising
billion.
European-style
Yet
public
economic
services?
growth remains
At what
weak,
point does
meaning
the
workers are
arithmetic
putting in
simply
more
stop
hours
adding up?
without producing more output, suggesting productivity is falling. This could have massive fiscal implications for the government in the future, according to The Spectator. Now for the final question before we end the video. Do you believe Rachel Reeves' decade of national renewal can still be achieved, or have the figures exposed the true state of affairs? Don't forget to support the channel by hitting the like button, subscribing, and turning on notifications. Share this video with your friends so we can hear everyone's thoughts. And here's a final thought. In the 1970s, the IMF's intervention scarred Labour for a generation, driving them out of power for 18 years. Could history repeat itself if Reeves and Keir Starmer mishandle the crisis today? Could one financial misstep end up reshaping British politics for decades to come? So let me ask you again. If Britain were forced into an IMF program, would you accept it as a necessary evil or fight against it at all costs? Do you believe the Chancellor's reassurances that there's no real danger? Or do you think storm clouds are already gathering? Drop your comments and make sure you're subscribed to England. Now 7, so you never miss the big debates shaping Britain's future. Because one thing is certain, Britain cannot outrun these questions forever. The markets are watching, the people are waiting, and decisions cannot be delayed much longer. Bloomberg, The Telegraph, Evening Standard.